I had written about 125 books by then, and I'd had some success. My agent, Rick Christian, called. He asked if I'd ever met Dr. Tim LaHaye. Rick said, I need to get you guys together because Dr. LaHaye is a best-selling nonfiction author with a great fiction idea, and you're a novelist with no ideas, so we need to get you guys together. We hit it off immediately, and I also liked his idea. I mean, it was just a great idea. He said he had been flying back from a prophecy conference, and he started thinking, what would happen if the rapture occurred right now? And he said he saw the pilot come out of the cockpit and was sort of flirting with the flight attendant. The pilot had a wedding ring on, and the flight attendant didn't, and he was just thinking, what's going on there? And if the rapture happened and, say, a third of the people on the plane disappeared right out of their clothes right then, what if the pilot had a wife at home who was a believer, and he realizes she'll be gone when I get home? That was the idea. That was basically the germ of the story. And believe it or not, the rest of it was on me. So I knew the story. I didn't have all the theology down. I'm not a theologian or a scholar, but that's the role Dr. LaHaye took. It was supposed to be one novel to start with. I got halfway through the writing, and I'd only covered 2 weeks. So I remember calling and saying, this is going to be more than one book. This is going to be a series. Of course, it wound up to be 16 books in total. I remember sitting there looking at the blank screen the first time and feeling really overwhelmed and saying, how do I do justice to the greatest story ever told and make it work? And I thought, well, I've written all these books and I've written lots of novels and I know this story and I believe this story, so I can write out of my passion, but what am I bringing to the table? I think that humility helped. Where I had a bit of a crisis of humility, or I should say a lack, was when Tyndale sent me, they sent a framed presentation of the first 3 covers because the books had, at that point, totaled 1 million in sales. And I remember feeling pretty good about myself when I got that. I'm thinking, I did something special there, you know. Ron Beers, who was head of editorial at Tyndale, called me and he said, check the sales of book 4 on Amazon. I said, well, you haven't released it yet, right? It's still next week. And he said, yeah, but these are pre-sales. Book 4 was #1 on Amazon a week before it was released. And these books started selling in the millions when they were released. It quickly had an interesting impact on me. I lost that idea of, didn't I pull something off, to where I was just saying, this is clearly beyond me. It's a God thing. I need to just get out of the way. All a writer can do is the best he can do, or she can do. Do your best work. We don't have any say over sales or marketing or word of mouth, which is really what makes it. But from that point on, it was just an avalanche. Because the books did so well, so fast, people were demanding more. And they would say, I finished that book, where's the next one? Well, it takes a lot longer to write it than it does to read it. Now, I'm a fast writer, but Tyndale started asking for a book every 6 months. I started facing what I consider spiritual warfare because I feel like I was on the front line doing something that the enemy doesn't like. I would have unexplained fatigue. I would fall asleep while I was writing. I was eating right, I was working out, I was sleeping well, but I would just get these huge bouts of drowsiness while I was writing. And if I ever had any computer problem or any technical glitch, it was during the writing of the Left Behind books. I would tell my wife, I feel like I'm coming down with something. She says, of course you are, you got a deadline. And so I got a prayer bench. You don't have to have a prayer bench to pray, but to me it just gave me that sense of really surrendering and humbling myself and saying, I can sense I'm involved in something huge here, and don't let me try to take over. Don't let me get in the way of what you're doing. And give me that stamina and give me the inspiration to keep this going. We didn't mind the criticism of the theology because people disagree on the theology, and that's fine. Dr. LaHaye would say that people would get their minds changed in the air. But even they were thrilled that people seemed to be coming to faith through these books. And we decided early on that we were going to try to keep track of anyone who told us personally. If they told us in a letter, in an email, and a phone call, or in person, that they came to faith through reading these books. We tried to keep a record of that. And there were over 3,000 just during that one little season there. And we know that represents a lot more who never did get a chance to tell us. I got a letter from a guy who said he was 95 years old. He said, my vision is so bad I had to read Left Behind through a magnifying glass. And he said, I came to faith. He said it wasn't because of what I saw through the glass, it was what I saw through my heart. And we actually had a friend of ours, Norman Rohr. We gave him all those testimonials. He wrote a book called These Will Not Be Left Behind. These letters from people who said they came to faith meant more than any royalty check, any bestseller list, any good review, and they did also overwhelm any criticism. It just paled. After the 3 prequels following Book 12, we did the final sequel, Kingdom Come, about the millennial kingdom. I can remember typing the end on Kingdom Come and thinking, this has been some ride and some season. If there was a tombstone for Left Behind, I guess it would have to say it worked, because we didn't know it would work. We loved the story and the idea and hoped we'd come up with something special. But for it to have the incredible sales that it had and the interest of people and the pass along value and everything that came from it, it worked beyond our wildest dreams. And when I say worked, that doesn't mean just commercial success. It means much more than that. It's just so many people who came to faith through it or came back to their faith.